This is Shane McCarthy from Wayfarer, and you are listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast.
One, two, three, four. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast.
Hello.
Hi.
Are you?
Hey, Shane,
Hi.
how are you?
Not too bad. Sorry, it took me a second to get connected, but I'm here.
No worries. I'm Bruce. That's my partner, Chris. Thanks for joining us.
Right on. Good to meet you guys. Thanks for having me.
Where are you at today? You in Denver?
I'm in Denver. Yeah. I actually just got home a couple hours ago. I just got married this weekend.
Oh, congratulations.
Good for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Nice. So you got home, you got married, and you come home. A few hours later, you're doing interviews.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what happens, I guess, when you get married right in the middle of a album cycle.
Right. But also, I mean, you're doing the best podcast in the country, so we're good.
Yeah. Couldn't possibly miss it.
Right. There you
Yeah,
go.
there's us, and then there's Eddie Trunk. That's how it
Right.
goes.
He's like way far behind, though. He's not even close.
You're not even close yet. Dull
Yeah, he'll have
partner,
to
please.
try to do
Anyway.
some catching up.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. Chris, you want to
Thank you.
take the lead?
Okay, so I turn on the video, and I'm gonna be honest, never heard of the band before. I turn on the video, the music starts, and I'm like, why am I hearing metal country? What the hell is going on? Like I was just like, why do I feel country in this metal song? And then I see this guy on a horse, and I'm like, what the fuck am I seeing? Where does this style of metal originate from? I've never heard anything even remotely like it. So like, how did that start?
I think it just traces back to we're all from Colorado, most of us born and raised, and there's like this kind of history of a really specific scene here that they call the Denver Sound. That's just kind of this some people call it Gothic country or like Gothic Americana sort of deal. Your bands like 16 Horsepower, Wolf in Hand, things like that we've all just grown up being big fans of. And when Wayfarer started a little over a decade ago, we were focusing on being a metal band and being influenced by the metal bands that we loved, but we're simultaneously big fans of this other stuff. And I think it just at first kind of crept in subconsciously because of that. And somewhere along the lines, after a few years, we're just like, you know what, we should just embrace these two different things that we're really into and make them into one thing. And for us, it's always been super important that it's not this kind of gimmicky, like, oh, we're going to switch halfway through to where it goes from one to the other. It's like they both have to be existing in the same space at the same time. So that's where we've been ever since.
So do you find at your shows, you see a lot of like, maybe this is the wrong term, but cowboys come in and be like, I love this, man. This is great. This is speaking to me in a way that I want country music to speak to me in.
Somewhat. I think it's more that we see, metalheads and metal fans that feel like it's, at least at our shows, it's now okay to show up in the cowboy hats and all that. And they're like, either they do have some kind of history with it or some kind of, interest in country music or Western flicks or something, or they're just they're just like, hell yeah, I can get in on this. But we do definitely, people out in kind of the region we're in, like at home, and then when we play like Fire in the Mountains up in Wyoming or people in Montana or something, they definitely seem to relate to it in a different way, because they've grown up around the same kind of atmosphere that we have, just being in the American West and how it's still kind of integrated into a lot of towns and whatnot in this region. So we see some people tapping into it for sure.
I mean, I don't think it's very different from like what happens with the European folk metal stuff, right? It's very,
100%.
very similar.
Exactly, 100%. And that was kind of, we started just doing it because we liked all that other music, as well as growing up being a huge fan of like Western films and like spending time on my granddad's ranch when I was young, where he had horses and guns and the whole 9 yards. And I think that planted an interest from a young age. But doing the metal thing, we're big into black metal and even some like folk metal bands, but I've always just found it so disingenuous when you find bands, from the United States who are like, "Oh, we're gonna do this kind of pagan Viking thing," and you're like, "Well, you're from Ohio, so maybe you don't need to be doing that."
Right.
And so for us, it's like, yeah, it is the natural progression where it's like, if we're gonna draw from our, nature and history and mythology and all that, this is what we have to draw off of, just
Well,
like
it's
the
honest.
Norwegian
It's
bands
honest
did.
and it's real because that's where you're from, right? I mean, that's
Exactly.
in your
Yeah.
genes.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of the same thing that they did, over there with all the kind of Scandinavian lore and history. So
Right.
it does, yeah, make sense for us.
Well, Bruce and I were just talking before you joined, and I was like, because I lived in the Washington D.C. area for about 5 years, and something that blew my mind away about living in there was how big Americana is, like as a style. Like, you know, it was just every venue, if there was an Americana act that came through, jammed with people of all ages. And I kind of see you're kind of like you say, Americana metal. Do you know what I mean? Or
Mhm.
Gothic country or whatever you want to call it. Do you
100%.
see people like that are big into the Americana scene coming into your show because maybe they also like metal too, but they're do you know what I'm saying?
For sure. I think so far, metal is so, like, playing in any kind of extreme metal, like, it is definitely one of those genres of music, like, either you're down or you're not. So far
Yeah.
it's been, more the metalheads coming around to the Americana side than the other. But I think we have noticed in Europe, because much like the Scandinavian folk stuff being kind of in some ways bigger in the United States because it's like exotic and interesting, I think we're starting to see in Europe that, there's those bands from Colorado like Woven Hand and like Slim Cessna's Auto Club and things like that are actually in some ways bigger in Europe, I think, because they have such an interest in it, because it's something different for them. And I think the fan bases of some of that stuff is kind of catching on to us, and seeming to start to accept us over there. So that's cool. But yeah, over here, it's definitely more the metalheads who are like coming around to the Americana elements than the other way so far. But we'd love to do sometime a tour that's more built around that side of things, and see how it goes, doing not a traditional metal lineup.
Yeah, it just shocked me when I lived there how big it was. I was just like, I've never heard of
Yeah.
any of these bands, and there's like 20,000 people here watching this, you
Yeah, for
know?
sure.
So
Yeah, there's a scene out there for everything, man. It's cool.
there certainly
There
is.
is, and I love that when they start to meld. Like I totally
Mhm.
dig the folk metal stuff. Like I'm a big fan of Corporal Cloney and Khan and those Irish, Finnish sort of folk metal where they're mixing the whole bunch together. I think it's really cool when it's done authentically and correctly.
Exactly. No, I feel the same way. A lot of that stuff was really kind of getting big when I was pretty young, and the other guys in Wayfarer were pretty young, and we were into a lot of that stuff as teenagers, and would go like see some of those bands. And I think, yeah, that probably has something to do with it too. But that's what it comes down to, because some of them, do it in a really jokey, gimmicky way, but the
Yeah.
ones who actually integrate it, it's really cool.
I also, it's interesting. I don't know how metal fans are reacting to it because I was also that metal fan that was strictly, you can't add, I don't know, harps, or you can't add folk guitars, or you can't add that. It had to be like Judas Priest and Metallica. And I think as I've aged and, my horizons have expanded, I've learned a lot more and, come to appreciate it. But do you still run into that as well? I mean, I imagine you do in the metal world, right?
Yeah, probably some. I think, we're just starting to like play more of the festivals and things like that. Because beyond that, it's like, well, if you came to our show and you hate us, that's your fault.
Right,
But
right. Fair
yeah,
enough.
occasionally we'll come across some people who probably think it's dumb for whatever reason. But honestly, like, less so than I would have thought. And who knows? Maybe people are just keeping their opinions to themselves, or
Right.
we're not looking for it. But my hope is that it's because, whether people like it or not, they can at least see that we're not doing it just to do it, you know, that like we did have a reason for why we are making music this way and like what our intent is with it, and that it's not just to exploit something for the sake of like doing something crazy, you know.
Right.
So my hope is that that's why there hasn't been like a ton of vocal backlash that we've seen, but you know, I'm sure there's plenty of purists that are like, you know, I don't need to see these cowboy hat motherfuckers play up here.
Do you wear
But
cowboy hats on stage?
one of us does. One of us does. I headbang around too much to do anything like that, but um
You
yeah,
have to
again,
wear
we
it like a
we
helmet,
try not
right?
to go overboard. What's
So
that?
You'd have to wear it like a helmet and zip it right
Yeah,
up.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm
Glue
not
it to my
too
head.
familiar with the, I guess, the Americana metal sort of thing that you guys are doing. Is it a big thing here in the States? I mean, I know folk metal is huge, but is that the equivalent here of?
I don't know. You know, I don't think so. I think we're towards, you know, being one of the first ones to really embrace it, at least in this way.
Right,
And I've seen a couple things roll out since we have, and who knows, like these people could have been working on it for a while too. I'm not trying to
right,
take
right,
credit for the idea, but honestly, not in any, you know, vindictive kind of way. I've kind of chosen not to pay attention to any of the other bands that have started doing it because we're kind of just focused on what we're doing, and like to us, it's not, you know, we're not interested in being a part of a scene. We're just trying to do what it is we're doing. But to my knowledge, there's not a ton of it. And yeah, because I think, you know, up until now, or maybe even really still now, when you hear the words folk metal, you're thinking of, yeah, like European, you know,
Bonnie,
either
something like that.
either like Celtic or Scandinavian or something
Right,
like that. And I wouldn't necessarily call Wayfarer a folk metal band, but there is some of that DNA in there because it is drawing from, you know, historical folk music as well as metal.
right.
But yeah, I don't think there's much of one, and really we're kind of just keeping our heads down and focusing on what we're doing at this time.
No, I think that's great.
Greetings from Evergreen Podcasts. We're rolling out a listener survey and we want to hear from you. The information in the survey will help us gather statistics and in turn make our shows more appealing to advertisers. I know most people don't like ads, but this is one of the only ways our shows make money and help keep their lights on. We promise it will only take a few minutes, but the impact on our podcasts will be tremendous. As a token of our appreciation, we'll randomly select one lucky participant each month to win an exclusive merchandise package from Evergreen Podcasts. Head to evergreenpodcast.com/listenersurvey to help a show and possibly get some free stuff for doing so. We can't thank you enough for the support. Now back to the show.
And I have a question for you. So the record, I mean, is definitely very themed or thematic. What is it that you want your fans to take away from after listening to American Gothic? I mean, it's pretty deep, right? I was reading the bio.
Yeah, it's a pretty dark record for sure. You know, there's like a bit of a trajectory with the last few records in terms of like lyrical content and concepts. Not that they're directly concept albums because they don't just tell one story, but they focus around like one general idea. And this one we've kind of built it as it is in those bios in the pitching, like it's like a funeral for the American dream. You know, it's just kind of like a dark and somber look at the whole kind of idea of this place, which is a pretty insanely interesting place at the end of the day. And there is a lot of darkness in its history, and we're not, you know, claiming that we have any answers or fully condemning anything. It's just kind of an exploration of the darker sides of the country, kind of through the lens of the American West. And we're just trying to create a feeling for the listener, because all my favorite bands and records do that. You know, they leave you with some kind of like feeling like you experienced something or just tapped into some world. And that's what we're hoping to do.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but this or Wayfarer in general doesn't sound like a band that is basically single related. I mean, you guys have to release a record, right?
100%. Yeah,
It's like a concept of sorts, right?
exactly. Yeah. We always kind of think in a big picture way, where, you know, each time we're coming around to writing, like we typically work out a lot of things about the album before we even really start writing it. Like usually we may even know what the title is and what like the aesthetic look and like general sound of it is going to be, and then we write to that. So it's very much like based around the big idea. And yeah, it's always kind of tough for us when it's time to like choose songs to put out as singles, because it is like they're all kind of pieces of a whole, but we hope they still land enough on their own.
Well, I mean, I guess you still have to, right? Because you live in a culture that's single based in one song
Exactly.
and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You got to do that. I get it. But yeah, I think
sure.
it's definitely something that needs to be listened to like the old school way, start to finish.
Yeah, that's always the hope. I think those are the types of music fans we are, all of us in the band, that we're the type to, we buy records, we sit down and listen to albums start to finish. Because most of the time, especially in the extreme metal world, that's how they were intended to be. So that's definitely how we write too.
Right. Chris?
Okay, non-serious question. At your wedding, first dance, metal, no metal?
It was Typo Negative, Love You to Death.
Yes. Nice. Yeah.
Yes. That's beautiful.
I was
had
just
to
like,
be that way.
yeah, I was just wondering. I was like, I wonder,
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Well, because my now wife plays in bands as well. She plays in Dreadnought, which is a fellow Profound Lore band, and a band called Bleak Heart. And so we've kind of known each other through playing metal and being in this world for a long time. So it had to be.
Nice.
Great.
Now, second non-serious question.
Yeah.
How often do you fidget with your ring, and how many days did it take you to kind of be used to wearing it?
Oh man, yeah. So we got married on Saturday, and I'm a consistent fidgeter anyway. Like if I have something in my hands, I'm always messing with it. So far I haven't stopped. That's for sure. Maybe I'll
That's
check
funny.
back with you in a couple weeks and let you know if that's changed. But so far it's all the time.
So
Does
I'm going
it-
to tell
what-
you, I'm married 31 years last week, and I
Okay.
still
Congrats.
fidget with
Yeah.
it. So yeah.
Yeah,
when
I'll
when I
probably do
got
that with you.
when I got married and the ring went on, I was like, oh, that's a nice ring.
Mhm.
But then, like about 4 hours later, I was like, this thing's fucking annoying. Like it's really driving me crazy. But I'm like, I can't take it off. And then my wife's dad was like, just leave it on. You'll get used to it. I'm just like,
Yeah.
I did get used to it now. And now it's
Okay.
weird if I don't wear it. It feels weird if I don't wear it. But
Right. Yeah.
I'm always like this. I'll give you maybe know this, maybe you don't know this. Take it off before you get in the shower, because
Yeah.
when you wash your hands in soap, it just goes flying. I've almost
Oh.
lost this thing a couple times down the drain. So just
All right. That would probably not go over too well if I did that. So
No,
I'll
I've-
take
I've
that
shit-
advice.
I've shit my pants a couple times. As I'm like, give me the damn it.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah.
I appreciate the advice. Yeah. I definitely can't stop messing with it, so I'll try
All
to
right.
not
Is
throw
this-
it down any drains.
I bet you this is the kind of podcast you thought you were coming on.
Let me get the hell out. Take this out on the road.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that last bit.
That's fine. What are your plans to take this out on the road? Are there plans to get out there and play?
Yes, for sure. The only things we have like confirmed, announced, is we're doing just a handful of shows on that Baroness tour in November. So that'll actually be the first times getting out on the record. But we're looking at some US touring, actually right at the end of the year, that hopefully should be getting announced soon. And then we're kind of finalizing plans for Europe as well, sometime probably next spring. We're definitely trying to just tour with some more bigger bands that we like and get out there to some different people. But ultimately we are trying to play everywhere on this album in one way or another. So it'll start with the Baroness thing, and then we'll kind of do some more US touring, get back to Europe and see what comes next from there. But we'll be hitting it pretty hard.
Excellent. Are you one of those bands that's always writing? Like, are you constantly, or are you just doing cycles?
No, we prefer to do it in cycles. I think we were kind of naturally pushed into that because we're all really busy. We all play in a few bands. And like, for example, our drummer plays in Blood Incantation and they're crazy busy. So, back in the early days, we would be the type of band to get together once or twice a week all the time. But now it's like, we'll kind of not have all of us in the same room for months and then plan out, okay, we're going to be working on a record at this time, we're going to be doing a tour at this time. And I actually much prefer it that way now that we do, because I think it really gives space in terms of writing. It gives you space from the music you're working on, where when you can take the time away, like you do the tour cycle and then you maybe just take some months off. For me, that's when those kind of concepts and all that really start to come into focus. Whereas I think if we're going all the time, the records will be a lot more similar to one another because there's not that time to like let go of one thing and move on to another. So I really appreciate the cycle.
When you guys are writing, then are you getting together and writing like all together in the room? Or are you still sending stuff back and forth?
That's kind of changed some over the years too. We definitely used to be a band that did everything, in the room together. Um, but over time, partly because again, just the way we work with how spread out everybody is with all the different bands, we've definitely integrated a bit more of both. And at this point, we're kind of doing a hybrid that I think is healthy because it allows you to, when we're writing stuff separately, like recording things at home and like sending them back and forth on files, it allows you to look at the songs in a different way. Because when you're playing all together, all musicians, I think, will fall into tendencies without thinking about it, just like things you'll naturally do. Whereas, like when you're dissecting the song on Logic Pro or something, you can kind of just think about it more from the outside, like what does the song need instead of like what would I naturally play here because that's like what I always do. So it's a bit of both. Like we try to, you know, get a couple riffs together, get everybody in the room, jam on it a bit, record that, but then take it home, deconstruct it, be like, okay, what's really the core of this song, what's working for it, and what maybe doesn't need to be there, and then structure it around that, and then we'll get back together again and work through it together. So we kind of go back and forth between the two.
That seems really healthy.
Yeah, it's taken, a decade for us to figure that out, but I think now that we do it that way, it makes a lot of sense because you can still get the natural energy of playing together and let things happen, but then yeah, I mean, look at it later and be like, okay, maybe we don't need to play this part for so long and all that. Like, let's just cut it down to the best bit.
Do you find it also gives like the more reserved people in the band? I'm not saying anyone in your band is reserved, but like oftentimes in bands, if you're in a room together, there's one strong personality that really guides the whole process. And a lot of times there's more people that are more reserved that just kind of go along with it. So when you spread it out like that, does it give access to the people that maybe might not be so aggressive in the jam room more opportunity to add into what the song would be?
I think so. Because yeah, I think everybody plays differently. Some people are really into and really good at the like improvising on the spot, feeling the energy sort of thing. Whereas some people are much more comfortable and do much better if they have time to like sit alone with it and stew on it. And so yeah, that totally happens where like there's a couple of us who are more the jammer types who just kind of like get going and write it there. And then we have like, for example, the other guitar player who will be like sitting there pretty quiet or just kind of playing along. But then if he has the files at home and he works on his parts, he'll like send us something like totally insane and awesome later.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think it's a healthy dynamic in that way too.
Cool.
Uh,
Bruce?
no, so what are they planning? You said you're heading to Europe. Are you doing anything by the end of the year? Anything local besides the Baroness show?
Yeah, so we've got the 3 shows with Baroness, and then yeah, we're hoping to we have a US tour that we've been working on for a while that we're hoping to announce within the next couple of weeks. That'll be kind of December, but there will be more in the States too. But yeah, as of right now, that's where it's at. We're things are kind of getting finalized, so I can't really give details. But
Does it get any more metal than touring in December?
Yeah, thankfully it's early December because it can get nuts. I mean, honestly, that's like a weird silver lining benefit of the world getting crazier and like all the things happening with the climate is most of the time, at least in this region, the snowy part of winter seems to be hitting later and later. So like if you go in early December, you're probably have a better chance. Whereas like if you're going out in January, like it's gonna be rough. So hopefully that logic holds. We'll find out.
Yeah, I went on tour once in January through Canada, and oh, dude,
Not a thing.
through the mountains in British Columbia, I was just like, "Holy fuck, we're gonna die."
Yeah, I cannot say I would recommend doing that, but hey, here you are. You live to tell the tale.
It's true. Yeah. Okay.
If fans want to find you, can you give us all your socials and that sort of thing?
For sure. It's pretty much Wayfarer Colorado everywhere. Instagram, Facebook. I guess that's all we really use. And then yeah, we've got a Bandcamp page under the same name. But yeah, we're pretty easy to find if you throw the Colorado in there. We share names with Ray-Ban sunglasses, so the Colorado part is probably essential. But if you drop that in, you'll probably get to us wherever you are.
So, Jane, I appreciate you taking the time. Big fan. I love. Glad you got to join us here.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys, and thanks for listening to the music and having me on, man. This is a fun talk.
You got it. Congratulations again on the wedding, man.
Congratulations.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.
All right, cheers, guys.
Bye.
Hello out there.
Yes, hello out there, everyone. I'm Hal Schwartz.
And I'm Flynn McLean. Together we host None But the Brave, a podcast dedicated to the music and career of Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce and E Street Band are on tour right now for the first time in 6 years, and we're taking a detailed look at what's happening on stage in our bi-weekly episodes.
We've also been recently joined by some very exciting guests, including rock journalist Warren Zanes and Stephen Hayden, Backstreet's Magazine founder Charles Cross, and Barstool's Kirk Minahan.
If you're a diehard Springsteen fan, this is the show for you.
So please subscribe to None But the Brave on your favorite podcasting platform, and we hope to see you further on up the road.
Thank you so much. We'll be seeing you.